Nimona has a surprising amount of attention to detail and symbolism in it, but what is perhaps the most surprising thing about Nimona is how accurately it portrays depression and propaganda. This is a first for animated media, and this is how Nimona expertly navigates it. I'll start with the propaganda, since it leans into the other topic that I'll soon talk about. We can immediately see a form of propaganda from Ballister's backstory through the way he is portrayed by the news, of which there only appears to be a single channel. But by far, the most prominent propaganda is against the so-called monsters. These monsters haven't been seen or heard by anyone for over 1,000 years, and yet this is the foundation on which the city is built on. You are constantly being told that the monsters are out there and to kill anything that isn't human. Everything from children's arcade games to the PA in the subway to even the cereal commercials perpetuates this. And the best part? Everything I've just stated is towards everyday citizens. Now imagine you're a knight. On top of everything I've just mentioned, your entire family lineage has protected the city against monsters. From a child, you're not only told who you are and what your purpose is, but that purpose is also perpetuated by society and your history. Ballister is very clearly a victim of this, not only being fed these lies, but also having to prove himself to the city. And Nimona knows this. She attempts to get Ballister to see through the illusion, asking him questions that make him think for himself to some avail. As shown in the film, the institution, which I must say is a great double entendre, takes this family lineage very seriously. Besides the director obviously having an issue with Ballister being a commoner, along with Ballister being relentlessly bullied, we see the statues of previous generations of knights that go back to nearly 1,000 years, and how upset everyone was when Nimona destroyed it. Well, mostly everyone.
But
Moving on to Glorith herself, whom in this city is treated as a god. One of the best scenes in this movie is in Nimona's backstory when she meets child Glorith. We see that Glorith initially was supportive of Nimona, and even that the villagers didn't mind Nimona when she was in her human form. But the second Nimona is something they aren't familiar with, they all start to panic. The way I see this is that while Glorith knew Nimona wasn't human, he also knew that Nimona wasn't a monster, something that is out to get her. But the fear of the unknown is very much real, and while child Glorith didn't have it, the adults definitely did. By far, the best scene in the film is when Glorith begs for the others to stop, stating that Nimona is her friend. But a single sentence from her parents changes her entire view. Some people have expressed distaste at how quickly Glorith switched on Nimona, and while it is true that Glorith seemed to be a very smart child, she is still a child nonetheless, meaning that she was too innocent to have a fear of the unknown, but also innocent enough to blindly listen to her parents and easily be manipulated. I love the implication that Glorith was gaslit over Nimona and their time together, so much so that she dedicated her entire life and left a lasting legacy to protect other people from Nimona. I also want to highlight just how well this film subtly shows the extent of propaganda on the citizens. When child Glorith initially sees Nimona isn't human, she is unsure of what to do, but accepts Nimona because she was a child. But when Nimona attempts to calm the child who she saved, as the knight that is supposed to protect the citizens literally runs away, that child can only see something that isn't human and must be slain. This not human sentiment is evident throughout the film. It's what Ballister tells Nimona when he remembers what happened at the institution, and all the other characters refer to her as a monster. And while Nimona accepts that she isn't human, she knows she isn't a monster. And the audience knows this as well. Or do they? I've mentioned this in my previous video, but for a very brief moment, the audience too falls for the propaganda when it is revealed that Nimona isn't just a monster, she is the monster. I don't know about you, but Nimona being Glorith's nemesis really threw me off. Let's go over some things. Nimona has shown herself to be extremely violent and a compulsive liar. Nimona has dragged Ballister even lower in the eyes of the public. Nimona has attempted to make Ballister think the institution are the bad guys, and Nimona has never revealed who she is or where she came from. And there is no doubt that Ballister realized this as he goes to confront her. I feel that a big missed opportunity from this film was not capitalizing on this doubt. A small scene where Ballister had conflicting emotions as he goes back to the hideout would have been amazing, but obviously, we know the truth with hindsight. But then, why did Nimona act the way she did? Yes, Nimona has portrayed murderous tendencies, but she never really acts on them. Nor do I think she wanted to. Well, except on this one poor fella. Obviously, Nimona is pretty powerful and can easily take on large groups of enemies with ease. But it is still nowhere near the massacre she kept on saying she'll do. The best portrayal of this is when Nimona is a cat. She could have easily eaten this rat, and I highly doubt anyone would be too upset about it, but she appears to purposely miss. Similarly, she shows Ballister very explicit images of what they would do to the other knights, but Nimona just seemed content with messing around with them. I believe that this is Nimona conforming herself to societal norms, just not in the way you would expect. Society thinks Nimona is a monster, and hence she pretends to be one, keeping up a tough and violent persona, but really just likes to mess around. Chaotic neutral, if you will. And I think the reason Nimona does this is because it is her way to get back at society. As previously stated, Nimona is aware about the rampant propaganda, which is why I believe she hadn't attacked the institution. But she also can't vent her frustration to anyone, so she takes it out by messing things up. But it doesn't really help, and Nimona is fully aware that there is nothing she can do to change the minds of the public. Small tangent, but I love the implication that Nimona is too nice to be a manipulator, despite not being that mature. She could have made a bogus story and ran with it. She could have shifted into anyone and just declared that monsters were good, but she isn't that type of person, unlike the director. Despite everything she has to go through, Nimona still has morals, and she pays for it every single day. It is clear that Nimona didn't want to get close to anyone out of fear that she would be rejected yet again for being different. And yet she does so with Ballister, because he too suffered the same way as her. We all know Nimona's story, but Ballister too had to endure years of being told he is something else, that he isn't good enough. And I think that that is a beautiful way to let the two characters connect. But when Ballister turns on Nimona, she is alone yet again. And that feeling of being betrayed by the one person you never thought would do so is immense. And it is exemplified even further when you realize that Ballister is probably the first person to connect with Nimona in hundreds of years, and probably the closest Nimona had ever gotten to someone in her entire life. It was already shown that Nimona had suicidal thoughts, and this betrayal from Ballister only intensified it. The shot of Nimona with Glorith's sword on her chest is outstanding, and the way Ballister reassures Nimona is perfect because again, that is what Ballister felt when he was in Nimona's position. Overall, this film is so heartwarming and truly deserves all the praise it gets. Thank you all so much for watching.